You're now listening to episode 140 of the Real Estate CPA podcast.
Your source for all things real estate, accounting, and tax. Here we reveal our secrets that can save you thousands in taxes, streamline your accounting process, and help grow your business. Stay tuned to hear insightful interviews with industry experts, successful real estate investors, and current clients on what strategies they use to grow their business and how they steer clear of Uncle Sam.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Brandon Hall and Thomas Castelli joined here today with Chris Cammack. Chris is a self-made seven-figure real estate investor, serial entrepreneur, corporate America side hustler, public speaker, and real estate business coach. But Christopher is most proud of being a father of two. In today's episode, we discuss how Chris built his seven-figure real estate business, his investment strategy, current market conditions, and much more. Before we dive right into today's episode, we did want to let everybody know that we had a lot of positive feedback about this recent 2021 Tax and Legal Summit, where we discussed lucrative tax and asset protection strategies with top tax and legal experts in the industry, including the real estate professional status, the short-term rental strategy loophole, how to use passive losses to offset taxes, cost segregation studies, 1031 exchanges, self-directed retirement accounts, the CARES Act, entity structuring, estate planning, and so much more. Again, if you missed this incredible event that was designed to save you thousands in taxes and help protect the assets and wealth you work so hard to build, you can still get the recordings for only $99 at recordings.taxandlegalsummit.com. That's right, you can get all 30 sessions from the 2021 Tax and Legal Summit for only $99. Just head on over to recordings.taxandlegalsummit.com to grab your copies today.
Your source for all things real estate, accounting, and tax. Here we reveal our secrets that can save you thousands in taxes, streamline your accounting process, and help grow your business. Stay tuned to hear insightful interviews with industry experts, successful real estate investors, and current clients on what strategies they use to grow their business and how they steer clear of Uncle Sam.
Hey Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Would you be able to give our listeners a little information on your background?
Absolutely, man. 28-year-old real estate investor. I like to call myself a serial entrepreneur because I don't just invest in real estate, but other things as well. But out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, invest in other markets as well. Actually got a new construction going on in Atlanta right now. I've done some flips in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And now I'm based out of Indiana for now. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, I got to ask, why focus on, why Indiana? Why Indiana is your core market? Why not Atlanta? Why not Fort Lauderdale?
Great question. Honestly, it's because I'm from here. And I came back to this market with no intentions of getting into real estate. It kind of fell in my lap. And it just took off from there. So it was no intentions on staying in Fort Wayne for as long as I have. I've been back here for 3 years. And once the real estate side of the business started taking off, we were just like, hey, you got to stay put for a while. I'll be leaving my gold mine. So I'm here to stay for now, but we'll see what happens.
Guys, so I know you're involved in a few different aspects of the real estate business today. How did you get started? Was it wholesaling? Was it fix and flipping? How'd you jump in?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. And it's so crazy because, Thomas, my story is totally different than a lot of others. Most people jump in with wholesaling, building up their capital, and then they start flipping or, something like that. My story actually is I bought a rental under contract, put $10,000 down on that property, and then I seller financed the rest. Then end up paying off the house in 6 months. From there, I bought my first flip. I call it luck. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than being great at something. I was extremely lucky. Made $100,000 on that first flip. And from there, I just kept scaling the business. So then I was like, oh, cool. I can buy a house. I can turn around and flip it. And then I could buy another rental. So I just kept buying rentals. Then bought my first multifamily, bought 16 doors. Was it 15 or 16 doors at one time? And then it just kept spiraling out of control from there. And then just kept pushing myself. So I went from rentals to flips, from flips to wholesaling a little bit. And then from wholesaling, I went over to new construction. And I was self-taught through the entire process.
Wow. So right now you're doing new construction, or are you doing a mixture of all of these? I mean, obviously rentals, but or a mixture of wholesaling and flipping it too at the same time.
Yeah. So I'm doing a little bit of everything. I would be honest with you. We love the buy and holds. I mean, we like that mailbox money. It's nothing like the first of the month when you're getting your checks. Obviously, it comes with hiccups too. And, everything's not rainbows and roses. But for the most part, we've been really, really lucky and blessed. But I'll be honest with you, we're starting to shift everything now. We're not doing too many rehabs. We're really focusing on new construction rentals. So we like that. You get a lot of equity in those deals, so on and so forth. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, so we're doing a lot of new construction currently.
Nice. And you mentioned you had no mentors, or you mentioned you did this mostly self-taught at this point. So you didn't go through any formal programs, any real estate programs. You didn't have any mentors. So like who, before we get into new construction, all that, who's on your team? And how did you grow your team? Like who's around you to support the business?
Yeah, good question. So no, to answer your question, I didn't read a book. I didn't listen to any podcasts. I wasn't on YouTube University like I should have been. It was sweat equity. So I was putting in the time. Now, I'll be honest, I'm pretty handy. So a lot of these things, I can teach myself, whether that's electrical, plumbing, putting in cabinets. And so I was like, okay, it can't be that hard. I'm seeing, in my subdivision that I live in currently, there was only one lot left in the neighborhood. And so I saw the house next to me go up in 3 days once they had the foundation done. And I said, that's a team. It's all about a team structure. It's not about an individual, right? And so I was like, I can do that too. So anyways, I added on to my house to learn new construction so I can self-teach I can be self-taught on every aspect of new construction. So I did that. And then I started to build my team after I did that. Once I felt like I knew enough to be dangerous, I wanted to know every aspect of the business. So I never could be overcharged or taken advantage of, because I've had companies that have failed before, right? So I was like, okay, how can I protect myself and make sure I dot my I's and cross my T's? So now my team's made of, there's a co-owner in my company. His name is Joe Berghoff. So Joe oversees a lot of our day-to-day expenses, running reports, putting budgets together. I'm out in the field, building relationships, networking, overseeing job sites. And then we got Darius. He does all our marketing. He's the one that probably reached out to you guys to get everything set up and get it going. So he runs our wholesaling. Darius and Joe run our wholesaling side as well.
Yeah, teams are absolutely important. You can't really build a business too far just by yourself, especially in the real estate field. Everybody knows real estate's a people business at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Just kind of circling back a little bit to the construction side, why new construction at this point in time? What is causing you to say this is the way?
Yeah. And I got asked that often. Everybody wanted to know, like, it's so left field. Nobody's talking about new construction, really. To be honest with you, I've always been one to challenge myself, one, and two, differentiate myself from the competition. So what everybody else is doing right now is wholesaling and selling all these courses on how you become a millionaire off of wholesaling properties. It's almost impossible right now because the market is so saturated. So what I wanted to do is figure out what I could do, again, to differentiate myself. And I felt that was new construction. So again, I pushed myself, challenged myself. I learned it. And then from there on, I was like, okay, this is something that can create generational wealth. One thing I really like about new construction is when I build a home, I shouldn't have to worry about a furnace, AC, a foundation, anything major for the next 10 years, as long as they don't tear the property up. That's not what you're not typically going to get that in a lot of your single family, multifamily existing properties. So I was like, hey, I'd rather build it. I got a ton of equity in it because we general contracted ourselves. And it works for us.
Yeah. We had another person come on our podcast, Brock Hollyman, not too long ago. He's out of Central Florida, who does the same thing. And he's kind of like buying these things and he's selling them to the end user right off the bat. Like he said, remember he told us that he was like pre-selling these houses before they even built because the demand was so high.
Yep.
So what are you doing with the end product? Are you keeping them as rentals? Are you selling them to an end buyer, like a retail person? Are you selling them to investors, or a mixture? Like what does it look like there?
Yeah. So any of my new construction, I've never sold a new construction. I mean, we've got a waiting list of clients that have asked us, will you please build for us? And we won't do it because our quality of our home, they like it. We are in it for the longevity. We're not in it for the quick cash, the capital gains. You got to pay on that money right away. You can't depreciate it. There's so many advantages to holding on to the property. And we're in this for generational wealth and legacy. So that's what makes it unique with me and my partners is we all have the same end goal in mind. So that is the reason why we don't sell them. And now we do flip some properties and we do put them up for sale and let them go. It has to be a unique situation. We're in it for the longevity, but there's money to be made in all aspects, which is the reason why we touch all of them.
That makes a ton of sense. At the end of the day, if you're in it for the real long term, the real value is in building a huge rental portfolio, essentially. And hey, if
Absolutely.
you're able to build it yourself and you're in a fantastic market like Indiana, I mean, you're putting yourself in an even better position, right?
For sure.
So have a few questions about how you go about that. But before we do, it kind of sounds like you got started right in 2019,
Mhm.
or around that time, and not too long after you get hit with COVID.
Oh yeah.
How did and people are still getting impacted by COVID today. Obviously, it's
Mhm.
currently about Q1 2021. How did you how what how did COVID impact your business, and how did you pivot?
Yeah. So COVID actually didn't impact us negatively at all. Now we had a couple renters that decided they want to take advantage of all of the things that the government was allowing them to do, such as not paying rent and you can't be evicted. But the beautiful thing about us is we diversify our portfolio almost as if people diversify their portfolios in stocks. So we put some of ours in government funding. So that means that it's a guaranteed check. It does not matter what happens. The government's going to be paying their rent. Some of them are just paying, they pay directly, and some of them pay with a voucher and rent. So we diversify our portfolio. So when we got hit with COVID, we have never been over leveraged. So it didn't matter if a couple of people didn't pay because we have the guaranteed money from the government. So that's been really good. Also, we actually took the time to acquire a lot of land at that time during COVID. So I actually bought an entire city block.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I bought an entire city block during the time because what happened is the individual that owned that property, I knew he owned a lot of strip malls. Well, one thing I knew is if you own strip malls, a lot of those tenants weren't paying rent. So I knew he would be in a position that he would want to sell this land that we had been working on for over, 12 months. So I ended up getting a really good deal buying that. It's right across from a college, and we're going to put student housing right across from the college. So it's honestly worked in our favor. COVID has so far,
Wow.
so good.
That's fantastic. It seems like, man, it seems like, you're playing a video game, you're just collecting all those rings, man, just jumping right through them nonstop. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's been
That's
good.
awesome. So with I would say at this point, how do you know, how do you know, like, how do you find your properties? How do you know they're good? How do you know it's a good deal versus a bad deal at this point?
Yeah. So now it's pretty automated. We're plugging it into a deal analyzer, right? So if the numbers don't make sense, we don't try to force it whatsoever. A lot of our deals come to us off of referrals and relationships. We hadn't done any advertising at all before wholesaling. Before we ever got into the wholesaling side, we didn't spend a dollar on marketing, unless you want to consider shooting some content marketing. But we hadn't spent any money at all in like commercials, mailers, anything like that. So yeah, we've been blessed in that aspect as well, where we've been able to build a great rapport in this small town that people realize that we do good business, we do clean business, and we get the deals done. So it's worked in our favor.
Yeah, you let the work speak for itself, right?
Absolutely.
So are you so you mentioned that you have someone who does marketing and runs the wholesale business, and you head up kind of the relationship building and banging on the doors, if you will.
Yep.
Um, is there any I guess things you would say someone wants to start a business similar to yours, perhaps maybe they're in another market and want to get started. What tips would you have for them getting started?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost is when you're putting together your strategy and your business plan, if it's in real estate, is to make sure that you implement systems and you create and you delegate tasks as you go along. One thing that I would tell you, I see a lot of people fail at is they get so far along and then they have to go back and create their system or document what their system looks like. So when you
Oh yeah.
onboard someone, it's extremely hard because now your time that you could be spent making more money, you're spending teaching and educating somebody on that role. Okay. So I would take the time to do that. I think that's really important. And then the second thing is take your time. Everybody wants instant gratification. Social media makes it extremely hard not to want it, right? Because you see everybody driving the fancy cars, they're flashing money, they're on exotic trips, but they don't show you what it takes to get there, right? And a lot of that, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the guys that are doing it, I think you'll see post-COVID, they won't be doing that, right? Because a lot of it, they make it look like they're doing a lot more than what they truly are. So what I would tell you is you got to come up with your why and your purpose. What is it that drives you? Why are you in it? And what are you trying to accomplish? And with those three things, I think you'll do really great.
No, no, that's great advice. And I got to comment on the entire systemization thing. I mean, if you read books like E Myth Revisited or Traction or any of those books,
Yep.
you're going to see that systematizing business is key to actually having a business. and not just having a bunch of things kind of thrown together. And
Absolutely.
I love what you said about how basically you did something, then you documented that process, so then you could then train somebody on it and to ultimately delegate that process. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, you know. But with everything you just said, I know you didn't have any mentors or anything like that, a lot of hands-on work to get there. You have to be well read, right? You had to read a bunch of books, I have to imagine, right?
It's crazy because I'm not a big book reader. I do some audio books. Honestly, probably one of my favorite books thus far is probably Russ. Russ has a book out that I really like. It's more about mindset and manifesting your lifestyle. But other than that, I'm not a big book reader. I've got a ton of them back here, but I don't open them that often because I'm so busy.
So if you don't mind me asking, who's Russell Brunson or Russell?
Yeah, so Russ, the rapper, Russ.
Oh,
I
right.
forget the name of his book. It's gonna bug me now that you said that.
Yeah, as I say, I was always looking for the good books, put on the reading list.
So it's called It's All in Your Head. And it's by Russ. It's a really good read. He really just breaks down the fundamentals of his story, but also the fundamentals of manifesting things into your life, right? So I had manifest a lot of the things that I have now 10 years ago, 5 years
Yeah.
ago. And so again, that's where it comes from, the instant gratification. People want the instant gratification, but you have to put in the work. You got to manifest these things for it to come true.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, that's how a lot of things in my life occurred. You got to have a vision. You got to hold that vision constant. You got to have the goal, right? And you got to continue to work towards that goal. And to your point earlier, it's not all about Instagram. It's not all about getting on there, the Ferraris and stuff. And we create a podcast to go called the Staying Power Podcast to actually talk about that type of stuff. But to your point, yeah, it's about having the vision, just grinding it out until you get there. It's not all gravy.
Absolutely.
Um, but speaking of that, I know you mentioned you're in this for generational wealth. You're in this, to build a legacy. What does that look like to you? Is it just building a bunch of properties until you have a certain size portfolio, or is it just keep going, or is there another thing that's coming after this? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Tom, I'll be honest. If it was built on numbers, I probably would be done already because I hit my goal of what I thought was my goal at the time within a couple of months of being in the industry. I never expected to be in the position that I am now. So I stopped looking at the numbers and more focused on the end goal, which was generational wealth and legacy, but also impacting other people's lives by educating them on the possibilities of doing this, right? A lot of people don't realize how possible it is, but they don't leverage the information that's available to them, such as YouTube and YouTube University and reading books, podcasts, so on and so forth. So I really don't focus on the numbers anymore. The numbers have come when I'm focused on my why and my purpose, and it's all falling in line.
Makes a lot of sense. So are the Real Estate CPA podcast. So we always got to have some form of tax questions. Not sure how dynamic your tax background is, but what's your favorite tax strategies for real estate? Everybody knows real estate has a ton of tax benefits.
1031 exchange.
And why is that? What is it about the 1031 exchange that you love it?
Just the benefits of relaying those taxes, right? And so you flip a $1 million building. I don't want to pay the capital gains tax on that, right? So let me go find something that's cash flowing, and then turn around and roll it into that. Just the possibilities from the tax strategies that are available are just unbelievable. And the depreciation schedule, I love that as well.
Yeah, I got to imagine, because you're full time, you run your business, you're also taking advantage of the real estate professional status at this point.
Oh, you know it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's big. That's big, especially, if you do have those big capital gains where you do sell property that you flip, that real estate professional status combined with, the rentals you have could be phenomenal.
It makes a big difference for sure.
So Chris, I was reading recently that inventory is at like 2 months right now nationwide. Inventory in a balanced market is about 6 months. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like December 2019. It was 3 months, and then it went down to 2 months a year later, December 2020. So, or maybe I'm not sure if I have the timelines right, but basically pre-COVID, it was better than post-COVID. So inventory is super low. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of eviction moratoriums that are, not eviction, We have a lot of forbearance, like people in forbearance that I believe that's coming due later this year, April, May, June timeframe,
Okay.
like millions of people. And assuming that some of those people can't pay their mortgage, they're going to put their houses up on the market. That's going to increase inventory. We also have unemployment that typically increases inventory as people put their houses up on market that they can no longer afford, or they get foreclosed on, and then those foreclosures hit the market, which that wouldn't actually happen until like into 2021 or early 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my question to you, since you've experienced a lot of success in a short amount of time, sounds like you're doing a lot of development and building. Obviously, low inventory helps builders, helps developers. Your margins are better. You can hire better people, do better work. Do you foresee this upcoming inventory, like I'll call it a glut? I have no idea what it's actually going to be, but do you foresee it? How are you going to pivot with this potential upcoming inventory later in 2021? Because more inventory, so that everybody understands, more inventory, prices go down, right? Supply and demand. More supply, you move to the left. I haven't taken microeconomics in a long time, but more supply, prices come down to meet demand. So how are you going to pivot, or are you just going to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brandon. I think honestly, there's no way you can keep doing what you're doing unless you have a particular business model. And with our business model, it allows us to continue to do what we do. And the only reason I say that is because we focus on rentals. So the rental market is not going to be truly impacted, hopefully, the way that houses on the market will be. And the reason why I say that is people that are losing their houses have to then go rent a property. Okay, so hopefully it'll be beneficial for us. But then you have to worry about the vetting process, so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to the flipping side, I can see it being a very hard part of the market, and it'll be a huge adjustment. I think it's time for a market adjustment. I think this bubble is definitely going to burst, right? So that's why we make sure that we only buy the ones that really make sense. And when I say that, it's got to have a ton of equity in it. That means if we hit a crash, this is going to be typically at market rate, right? So we're not buying those home run deals. A lot of people that are getting started in this industry, they've listened to podcasts, all the people on social media, and they're shooting for the stars on the first deal. And unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be prepared for what's going to happen. So I think there's going to be a huge adjustment just because of what you just said when banks start foreclosing on those properties.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Kind of more, I'll talk about some of the other stuff that I've read too, but I like what you said about the rentals, because you're totally right. If people are putting their homes up for sale because they can no longer afford the mortgage, they've got to live somewhere. So then you're going to see increased pressure on rents or rental properties. More demand, price of rents go up theoretically.
Absolutely.
My wife and I have been trying to acquire rental properties in Raleigh, North Carolina for some time. We just picked one up and we put an offer in for another one this past weekend, $20,000 over asking with $20,000 due diligence. And $20,000 due diligence, by the way, in North Carolina, the way that it works is you offer due diligence and you also offer earnest money.
Okay.
Due diligence is the money that you pay up front the time the contract's signed, and it's just gone. It's basically like an option to buy the property. Okay. If you decide not to execute your option, you still lose your due diligence. Wow. Most people will put down I think it's like 0.5% of the purchase price for due diligence. And this was a $320,000 property, and we put down $20,000, so almost 8%. Because I was like, okay, we're going 20 over asking, $20,000 due diligence. They've got to accept our offer. If I got this offer and I was that person, I'd be like, I'm going to take the one with $20K due diligence, because that it's going to be very painful for somebody to back out of. And we got an email. It's like, sorry, we accepted an offer. Yours, they didn't word it specifically like this, but basically the implication was not close to strong.
Oh, wow.
I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So I'm sitting here, right? I'm like looking at this. At the same time, I'm looking at all of these statistics, and I was watching somebody's YouTube video, and it's so bad because I'm sure that somebody's going to listen to this podcast and go, oh, you're getting it from that YouTube video. And you're right. I think it was Ken McElroy.
Okay.
One of his videos. Yeah.
Okay.
He was talking about the supply and everything. And I was like watching that at the same time. And I was like, you know what? I might just wait until Q3 to start picking up rentals again. Maybe there will be a price pullback, but I think it's going to be some weird timing in 2021 because you're going to see the inventory increase. It's got to increase. A normal market 6 months. We're at 2, so it's got to increase at some point. Ken says end of 2021, so maybe Q3, Q4 2021. You see prices pull back, market cools off. Then you go buy the rentals because in 2022. You're gonna see pressure on rentals. Everybody moving into rentals, so prices will increase there theoretically. But anyway, it's just kind of like an interesting stuff to look at.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's only going to get worse, but it's crazy to see. And I didn't even know this to be true before you said your story, but I believe that there's 1,000 of you doing exactly that. Is I'm paying $20,000 over asking price. I'm willing to pay, put money down for this due diligence that I won't get back. And honestly, some of these houses aren't even appraising. Now, one thing I'm starting to see in my market is they're cutting appraisals finally. They're cutting them and saying, and I shouldn't say finally, because it's not a good thing when I go to sell a property, but it's a good thing because that means that they're starting to pay attention, that things are getting out of control. Banks are lending just too easy. I mean, they're not taking this thing, I believe, as serious as it's going to be. I don't think it's a 07, 08, right? I wish I wasn't only 28 years old now. In 07, 08, I would have been able to live through that because I would have been buying anything that I can get my hands on. But I hope it doesn't get that bad. But I think it's gonna definitely be a wake up call, kind of like what COVID was to us in 2020. That it's like, okay, we really need to take our time. There's more to buying properties and rentals than just watching a couple YouTube videos and putting an offer out there.
It's not that easy.
I wish it was.
Well, we've seen people cutting appraisals too.
Have you?
Around the Raleigh market? Yeah, I've started to hear about that, where the appraisal will come in 20 grand less, and you're like looking around like, whoa, wait. I mean, the comps recently are it's all comped out. It's fine,
right?
But I didn't know that. So that's interesting. So the appraisers, are they doing that like to protect themselves?
So that's the crazy part. And I've had 2 appraisals cut in 2 years. One was, I don't even know how it happened. It's crazy because within a half a mile radius, there were houses that were $200,000 more than what I was asking with the same square footage. But they say, oh, it's a different part of town. How? It's a half a mile away. What do you mean it's a different part of town? Right? So some of it is a lack of education, I believe. 2 is I learned that when somebody is dealing with hard money loans and they don't have, private lending, or they don't have the capital for themselves, or it's not traditionally financed through a bank, they're more eager just to take an offer if they get stuck in a deal. Well, I had that happen at a property that was right across the street from one that I was flipping, and they cut my appraisal by almost 20 grand. Well, if I didn't have enough equity in that deal, that's why I said we always buy them right. That would have been a bad situation there. Mm-hmm. But I'm starting to see it. I think it's a lack of education. I think they're trying to adjust the market. And then also, if you're ever the first one into a neighborhood to make changes, I don't recommend that. I've been that guy, and I've had an appraisal cut because I was the first one. They're like, I don't see the vision. I'm like, but I own 7, 8 other lots on the street. I'm going to do the same thing. Nah, so I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I think those are a few of the things that I've noticed.
That is interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing, but I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. You can't, if your appraisals feed the price run up, then it's just going to burst even harder. Right. And that's super interesting because you do. I mean, a couple of these I've looked at some of the properties around, and maybe it's like a different neighborhood. Maybe I don't know how to appraise property. I mean, I don't know how to appraise properties. I look at recent sales, but some of them you're like, whoa, wait, this is so wrong. You should go challenge it. Right. But maybe it's not. Maybe they're doing it intentionally. That's interesting.
It is very interesting. I was looking at some appraisals that I just got for 12 parcels that I just got the appraisal back, and the gentleman appraised the lot right next to the lot that has a building on it for, let's call it $80,000. But the lot that's right next to it that has a building on it that is all brick appraised for less than just the land. I was like, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean? So that one's going to get challenged. I'm actually going to challenge that one. But yeah, you never know.
Well, I just want to throw one thing in there for everybody who owns a bunch of rental portfolios or a bunch of rentals in their portfolio who might be like, "Oh my God." Well, the good news is even if there's a pullback and the market does cool off and the prices do come down, if your goal is long term buy and hold, as long as you're not over leveraged, as long as you could pay your mortgage, I mean, you just hold it through the downturn and you're coming out, and that's the long term vision of that, right?
Absolutely.
The only time you're going to be in a really tough predicament is if you over leveraged, you can't pay your mortgage, or your mortgage is you use some kind of short-term financing where now all of a sudden it's becoming due, you can't refinance, and now you're forced to sell, and now you're really going to be in a tough position. But
Absolutely. And so often you see people get over leveraged because they buy a rental property and then they turn around, or a flip, and they turn around and refinance it out and take the bank, I think, lets you take out 80% now. Some of them are 70, and they'll take out all 80%. And it's like, how are you cash flowing? Well, you might cash flow right now in today's market, but in a downturn, you can't cash flow that way. So we absolutely never do that.
all right, so at this point, say let's just say that our listeners wanted to learn more about what you have going on, or wanted to reach out to you, maybe wanted to work with you in some way, shape, or form. What would be the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I'll probably say the easiest way to get a hold of me is either on my social media, which is probably going to be Instagram, which is Mr.Cammack, Mr.Cammack, or on our website, which is Cammac Estates, which is CAMMACKESTATES.com. And on that, we have a Key to Success mentorship program where it goes through all the tips and tricks to be successful within the real estate industry, what it took for me to build a 7-figure real estate empire from nothing while working corporate America. So yeah, if you want anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But also, if you're looking to get into real estate, you got to make the investment in yourself. And I think we're giving it away for like $199. I wish I had access to that for $199, but yeah, that would be the 2 ways to get a hold of me, or how to get started in real estate.
All right, so we'll go ahead and drop that into the show notes for everybody who is listening. Hey, Chris, want to thank you for coming on the show today, and it was a pleasure having you on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed the show, please find us on iTunes and leave us a review. You can also email us at contact@therealestatecpa.com with any feedback or topic suggestions. We are always taking on new clients, and with the new tax laws in play, you really don't want to navigate this alone. Let us help you save money on taxes and with your accounting and CFO needs. To become a client, navigate to our client page at therealestatecpa.com and fill out a web form with as much detail about your situation as possible. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week.